Have a roll call. Mark Blackmore,
Joseph Adelita.
David Morris, Aaron Corbo,
Joe Palulik, John Day.
okay. Designate John Day as an alternate today. And we'll continue on with the pledge of allegiance. Hey, thank you everybody for being here and for coming and being present here. And thanks for all the employees make this life easier. So appreciate all your help. Any citizens' comments having that nothing to do with what we're going to discuss tonight? Okay. We have meeting minutes from January 16th.
Move to be approved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? So moved. We can't start our public hearing until 7:45. So we're just gonna have to wait a minute. Like nothing else we can really move. Oh, yeah. How about the CEO report?
There's 3 permitting items since the last meeting. Home occupations or change of business. I received 1 bond for resident sediment control. We'll come up with the house. The grass is kind of establishing. I need some time this month for health reasons. Hobbling around. Focus on customer service and preparation, making sure we get all the documents for this meeting. Complaints have subsided. The complaints we were getting were non-zoning in nature generally. Health department or UCOG, animal control, or police. I've got some applications for zoning pending that they're waiting on a wetlands appeal period or wetlands permitting. You can see them. Got some very interesting inquiries. Not really related to zoning, but it's, my office is kind of a catch-all for matters related to land. The property that had the PDR where a neighbor was claiming that they had a right of way is still kind of kicking around. The town attorney said that ultimately either party is going to have to get a title researcher to know and understand, read the 1800s deeds to make sense of a lot of this. I've transcribed a bunch of them, and it's clear to me that the gentleman doesn't have a right of way. It's referenced somewhere else. But I'm not a title researcher, and it could be something I'm overlooking. That's ultimately the Department of Agriculture really should participate in farmers' issue with the neighbor. Held a few pre-application meetings for variances, request for variances, and they've all been on the same theme. Each involves pre-existing non-conforming driveway to a large lot where someone wants to carve off a lot for their family. But they need to have a minimum of 25-foot set aside for that lot. And they can't take from pre-existing non-conforming right away. One of these came before the commission a few years back regarding whether or not their property was eligible for free split. We found that they were eligible for a free split, but they have the problem of the driveway. So the options presented to them at the time were, they could try to come to an agreement with their butter to get more land, to get that 25-foot width. They could request a variance, or they could try to change the town's rules. And it's funny how this is clustered around the same notion. So I don't have any applications yet for ZBA, but they will possibly be coming through. And that's all I got for now. If anybody has any questions about anything, please give me a call, stop in, or send an email.
Were there, any home occupations?
Nope.
We schedule our legal training. Meeting. We usually do that. March, April, try to get done, keep up the schedule pretty quick. What's
You could put it for the days and then you could see if the attorney's available.
March 6th is the first Thursday, March 20th, third Thursday.
Well, then you'd wanna have it on the night of our regular meeting, we may have a public hearing continued that week.
That's going to April
March 6th or April 4th,
3rd,
3rd, right, sorry.
April 3rd.
We present those dates to town attorney. Yeah. And be thinking about any questions you want to bring up or things that we need, that people want to discuss with the town attorney, or anything might be want to clear up.
What date did you say, Dan, in April?
March
4th,
6th and
I'm
April
sorry.
4th.
April 4th.
April 3rd, or 3rd.
And a general reminder, the Connecticut Land Use Law Academy is hosting their 8-hour-long webinar on Saturday, February 22nd. And
March 22nd.
March 22nd. Okay, sorry.
Get closer. I didn't see. I'm not aware of any bills or anything we need to do for the budget review. That's not a lot of stuff.
Do have communication from Connecticut zoning, CFPZA. The newsletter.
And we have an event, too. Sign up form if anybody wants to go. Like,
Will that qualify as training? Okay.
probably does, but I have to check to be sure.
Yeah, right now, it's just, there's no form. It's,
No, I can see if I can get you another one.
yeah, I think that's fine.
Remember that it will need, training for. That's first night, longer.
Ever done anything else in the agenda for the hearing?
No.
I think you can move up to the chairman.
But you got a good joke.
How many days till spring?
Yeah, oh, that's it. How many? You know? Fine. 45, open public hearing on application number 663-01-25, K&M Building. It was posted in the shopper's guide on February 5th. 2025 and February 12th, 2025. With the, legal notification went out. So now, there's representatives from K&M Village that want to make a presentation.
Fair.
Is here okay for my board? Maybe the public wants to see it too, I know.
Yeah.
Just the screen.
Okay, thank you, Delia. Great. Good evening, commissioners, public. For the record, my name is Daniel Blanchett. I'm a licensed civil engineer and land surveyor. I work with J&D out of Thompson, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Ken and Melissa Pelk. Before I really dive into it, I think maybe Ken, if you could stand up and just give a quick introduction, your background.
Absolutely. My name is Ken Pelk. I'm the co-owner of K&M Villa Estate. My co-owner couldn't make it tonight, was so back. For the record. But yeah, we're excited to bring this opportunity to Woodstock, and we're looking for all the feedback. I'm looking forward to the presentation, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
We're here tonight to seek your approval for a 5-lot subdivision. The site is located on the east side of Route 198, very close to the state line with Massachusetts. Look at sheet 2, the boundary survey sheet. Again, you can see we have 5 lots. The lots are between 1.4 acres and 9.5 acres, 14 acres in size. There's no work really proposed within the upland review area. We do have approval from the Wetlands Commission. You can see back on the far east side is our conservation land. We also have approval from the Conservation Commission. We're proposing about 9.5 acres of conservation land, which is well in excess of the 25% required. The conservation land will be part of Lot 5. Again, on recommendation from the Conservation Commission. We have a 60-foot wide shared driveway, which belongs to Lot 4. This is a major subdivision over 3 lots, and so of course a public hearing is required. We have wetlands delineated with also. We'll go on to sheet 3. Here's really the site plan sheet. In general, the site is located below the road. There shouldn't be any impact to Route 198, no concerns with drainage. We have the shared driveway coming in with 5 lots teeing off that shared driveway. We have specified Mantis septic systems. They're very efficient. They have a small footprint, which helps us reduce the amount of disturbance, keep the tree clearing and grading to a minimum. The site has been designed with low impact development principles as recommended in the updated 2023 Stormwater Quality Manual. We've tried to encourage sheet flow. We've tried to minimize impervious areas like buildings and driveways. And again, there's no formal drainage proposed. We're not proposing curbs. We're not proposing catch basins or culverts. Again, try to replicate the pre-existing conditions as best as possible. As of right now, again, the site is forested. It has a lot of mountain laurel, a lot of really nice big hardwood trees, and Ken wants to try and preserve as many of those trees as possible. We have some detailed sheets. And again, a road profile, all kinds of good stuff, site context aerial map, which I could get into in detail. These are all things that are required by the subdivision regulations, site resource assessment map. I'll touch briefly on our permit status. We do have approval from the Conservation Commission. We have approval from the Wetland Commission. We've addressed all the comments by DOT, which were fairly minor. And lastly, we've addressed all the comments by the fire marshal with regards to cisterns. There is going to be a 10,000 gallon cistern for fire protection located towards the end of the shared drive. The other thing is regarding NDDH approval. With the health department, we have an approval for 4 of the 5 lots. With the 5th lot, we encountered ledge at 39 inches. The health code requires 48 inches or 4 feet of soil above ledge, 2 feet which can be naturally occurring. And so in other words, if you hit ledge at 24 inches, you can retest, but that involves cutting down all the trees, bringing in 2 feet of clean fill and digging a new test pit. Ken has done his own test pits just downhill of the previous test pits where we encountered ledge at 39 inches. Ken didn't find any ledge. So again, I don't have a final approval right now for lot 5, but we're very confident that it will meet the health code eventually during final design. I think that's kind of what I have for now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Was the matter of the road naming, settled?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, it's, that was approved, let's talk to Chan, first selectman. He said they approved the name.
What was the name again, Ken?
Villa Way.
Villa Way.
Villa
Thank
Way.
you.
Yes, that was, that was, good catch on that.
And that's just for fire safety, all sorts of reasons to have individual addresses rather than A's, B's, and C's.
Of course.
Yes, that was clear, I should mention it first.
How close is the site to the border?
It's about 500 feet, a little bit more, probably like 600 feet. 500 scale. 650 feet from the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I got a couple of concerns.
The commissioners ask first, and then we'll have. We'll let the commissioners ask first, then we'll invite the public.
I'm concerned about the water that comes out of that culvert from Route 198.
Mhm.
Do you know roughly how much drainage area is contributing to that culvert?
Off the top of my head, no. Again, whatever there is there today, we're not going to be changing that. There's a pretty nice low point. Natural low point on the site. Between the road and any construction, there's a low point here at elevation 794. So anything coming off that culvert is basically going to come to here and then head north onto the town of Southbridge property. And we're not affecting that at all.
Okay, so it's gonna be flowing north. It's not going to affect the reserve area or the proposed septic system for lot number 1.
No, sir.
All right, the outlet of that culvert, is it stable?
I'm not sure I can say definitively right now. Whatever is there today, we're not changing it. We're not increasing the amount of runoff. And any proposed construction is outside kind of the drainage path. So in our opinion, that would really be up to DOT to maintain or approve if there was an issue.
Well, they don't care if it's outside the right of way. But my question is the outlet stable? If it's not stable, it should be stable.
Understood.
All right, another question I had was, the house elevation on lot number 4.
Mhm.
The garage is lower than the surrounding topography. You're gonna have water running into that garage. I would suggest that the elevation of the garage floor be raised.
That's a great suggestion. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, for the subdivision, this is really kind of a conceptual or preliminary design.
I know, but
You
were
don't
very-
have the
you
sufficient
were very
detail for
specific.
construction.
You were very specific as to the elevation,
Uh-huh.
so I'm being specific. All right, the other concern I had was also a concern brought up by our reviewing engineering firm. And that is that low point there on lot number 1. next to the road. If that's a stormwater basin, that has to have some kind of a design.
It does, yeah, it does have a design. We've submitted a stormwater report. It talks about how much water is gonna be in and going out of that low point during different events. The drainage area is about 0.3 acres. So even during the highest events, the biggest storms, when it's gonna wanna fill up with water, it's gonna overflow naturally as sheet flow. And it's not gonna disturb any other properties. Again, as it's spread out and dissipated, we don't believe it's gonna be an issue.
Yeah, I think a concern was brought up by our reviewing engineering firm also.
I
So
haven't gotten any,
you might read what
I-
they had to say.
I have not gotten any comments from design professionals
Okay,
as of today, which I believe are reviewing
all
our
right,
plan.
well, take a look at it.
Seen any of their comments?
I have not gotten any comments from design professionals. We've gotten comments from town people, from NECOG. We have not seen any comments from design.
Yeah, well,
professionals.
take a look at it because they are, as I am, concerned about that low point.
Okay.
Yep, and then-
Yeah, I had sent them, I can resend them to you tomorrow to look at.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I apologize. I don't know if we missed these or what. Yeah.
Question, on the easements, so the lot number 5, or whatever is gonna own the set aside,
The conservation.
the
Yes.
conservation land, so that there's an easement that goes with that?
Yes, sir, exactly.
And so it's up to the owner of lot number 5, who, that would be their property, that'd be up to them to maintain and make sure it stays.
Yes, sir, yeah.
If
So
there's
it's-
any, so if they, somebody comes and inspects it, says this isn't right, that's that lot owner's responsibility.
Yes, sir, exactly. It's gonna be privately owned, but with a conservation easement. I believe we've provided language to the town, some sample language. I have that.
Yeah, no, I saw that, that's why. I was
Okay.
asking.
Yes, yeah, it would be up to the owner of lot 5, which I believe is probably gonna be Ken himself. To enforce that and make sure that there's no trees cut, no structures built, things of that nature.
The question, when you said the Conservation Commission approved it, are they aware that, would they be holding the easement?
In terms of who would it be dedicated to?
Well, the town has to have an easement to restrict the use of it,
Yes.
so are they aware of it?
Yes, so we had a conservation commission meeting a couple weeks ago. Originally, we had talked about having the conservation easement spread between a couple lots. Lot 3 would own a piece, lot 4 would own a piece, and lot 5 would own a piece. And their main comment was it could be hard to enforce. Again, if it's shared by 3 different properties. And so their big comment was try to combine it all onto one property.
But are you getting to the question of who has the document to say that's a conservation
It
easement?
gets filed with the town, but typically in the past, the Conservation Commission was often listed as the group who I guess oversees. I'm not actually sure if they have the manpower to do those sorts of things. But they were listed many times in the past.
Right,
Okay, our sample language right now says town of Woodstock. Well, we could certainly change that.
Any other,
Yep.
Yes. go ahead.
just a couple. I was gonna ask about the design professional review because you had listed the conservation commission, wetlands, DOT, fire marshal,
Yes, sir.
and NDDH. You said you would comment on or address them. To the satisfaction of those different groups, any response back from them?
We've had a couple different responses from DOT and the fire marshal. I believe those were entered into the record. think I have copies here. If you give me one moment, please. Okay, yeah, here's the fire marshal. He had a couple minor changes, add a 6-inch hydrant. And the plans have been updated to specify that, and also a 1-year warranty for leak. So the plans have been updated to incorporate his comments, yes.
Okay, any from DOT?
And from DOT also, we got 2 different letters from DOT. They sent us a letter asking for a couple of changes. We made those changes. Then they sent out a second letter asking for another small change, which we also
Took care of by filling it out.
by putting it on the new plans, yes.
Okay. The conservation land or any of this, is this in the watershed area of Southbridge, you know? Because it's so close to the border.
I think it is, exactly. I think it is, and I think that's why the Conservation Commission was kind of excited to
Sure.
take it instead of taking a fee in lieu of. Because it is in the watershed area and it does drain towards the Southbridge property.
And then finally, just wondering if the town attorney was okay with that driveway easement, because that was going to be something that we wanted to make sure that the driveway had clear language of who owned it or who was going to maintain it.
I'm sorry, I haven't heard back from the town attorney. I know they asked for language. We submitted language. I haven't heard back.
You did say that if the lot 4 was gonna own the drive.
Yes, sir. Yep, yep. The driveway is part of lot
4
4.
or 5? Forget which one.
Do you know if the applicant has seen the declaration of easement for driveway and utilities? Somebody's got to agree to this contract.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like that's important too.
You haven't seen it? Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's standard that we've copied from a lot of other driveways. It talks about how you're gonna share the maintenance and the plowing and things like that if there's any issues.
It just needs to be formalized, signed off, and it's part of the final package.
Okay, so you want us to have it, the town attorney kind of give us a thumbs up on that, or? I'm
Well,
not sure.
somebody needs to sign it to make sure it's part of the final.
Oh, of course, yeah, for the final approval, yes.
Following approval, they would have their documents finalized and filed them on the land record. But the easement actually gets filed with the town clerk.
Okay, but trying to make sure that gets done.
Yeah, I think that could be a condition of approval, maybe.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk about snow shelf at the wetlands meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have an opportunity to explore that idea?
I believe that was added. Right here, we have an extra space added. We're more than halfway up the driveway.
Let's go to the place so it's not. Just making sure. Any other questions from Commissioner and staff?
And pardon, you said the health department approved 4 lots.
Mm-hmm.
Just recall what you said about the 5th lot.
Absolutely. So the 5th lot, they hit ledge at 39 inches. The health code requires 4 feet of soil above ledge for a septic system. 2 feet of that has to be natural or native. So in other words, if you're digging a test pit, you hit ledge 2 feet down, you can still clear all the trees and bring in a lot of fill, and then do another test pit to prove that you're providing the 48 inches. Ken went out and dug some additional test pits downhill, test pits 18 and 19, and did not observe any ledge. We haven't been able to have Maureen officially record those, but we're confident it will meet that.
So we don't have approval on that 5th lot yet, right?
No,
Okay, any of the citizens present want to ask, present want to ask questions or have any comments?
Just curious,
Could you
these
state
are
your name
all,
for the record?
pardon me,
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Chris Castani. Just ask, these are all single family homes,
yes,
that's all.
Anybody else?
The back.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
You wouldn't perhaps
Could you
know
take
the
a minute
address
to
of
record,
the lot?
please?
Jacob Cordlow? You wouldn't happen to know the address of the lot?
Right now is a vacant property. It has an address of 0. It's lot 2A.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I move we close the public hearing.
Um, do we need to continue it till we get NDDH approval for lot 5?
Oh, so we need to continue it, I close.
Right.
Okay.
And one of there were fairly specific questions asked by design.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to have it. The paragraph I'm looking at, in the event that the proposed low point depression does not infiltrate and fills with water, where will overflow discharge? It appears that the gravel road will be flooded to elevation 796.40, where excess will overtop the crest of the road and send water to the Molosek property. Is this the case? Over time, this area may become less pervious as a result of an accumulation of fines, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, I think we really need an answer to that.
Of course, yeah, and again, I apologize. I don't know how I missed this.
Okay.
I'll certainly have answers at the meeting next month.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue the public hearing, on the 2nd. Continue until, oh, yeah, well, continue till,
Well, happy to ask the applicant how.
how
soon
long
they
do you think
they
it,
could get that,
could we do this like
the next,
the 20th, March 20th?
Absolutely, yeah.
That works for you?
Yes, sir.
Does that work for Paul? Second, any more discussion?
Just include the information that Delia mentioned about the septic system on lot number 5 too.
Yes.
So the sooner you get that to NDDH, the better.
Absolutely, yes. I'll be back in March with the NDDH approval and again, some comments for design professionals.
I think that covers all the concerns. Okay, so, all in favor of approving the, continuance?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, everyone. We'll see you next month. Take care.
Thank you.
just trying to ask, make sure you get those, the easement signed, Daniel.
Right. Maybe I'm confused. I think we get them signed after a vote by the commission is approved, and then the town attorney would review it after the commission votes. If
Okay,
I'm
so
not,
that's a condition of approval.
Can't receive any new information after the close of the hearing. If the commission wanted me to send them to the attorney, you have to make that vote. And then any costs incurred of the review, the town need to be reimbursed.
Where did it come from?
Where did what come from?
The easement? This,
my firm provided that.
or your firm provided?
Yeah, again, based on many
that?
other
Okay. I didn't know.
projects that we've done that were similar. It's kind of boilerplate.
Be okay with this? And if we brought up as an issue.
You've seen one of these, is that pretty standard?
Thompson, and Cameron's reviewed it, but, wouldn't be bad since we haven't seen the Thompson button yet. We can have the attorney review it, but, I actually need you guys to make a motion for me to send something to the attorney.
Okay, so do we have a motion to send the easement to the town attorney?
Do we need to send both of them, the conservation easement as well as the driveway easement, or is it conservation easement? Okay,
I think both of them.
Yeah.
then I'd make a motion to ask the town attorney to look at both the declaration of easement for driveway utilities and the conservation easement agreement.
We have a second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much.
Vote on closing.
Oh, we have to go. No,
Like motion and we second on closing?
no, we didn't, we already voted.
Yes, that's what I'm continuing. You voted on it?
Yes.
Yes. And it passed. Joseph won't give the motion, I think, Mark, second.
Once we got the date set.
And then you should, we try to have motions in, like you closed it and then you made another motion.
Yeah, you should do it the
Oh,
other way.
yes, you're right. Can you fix that? Do we need to?
The motion is modified by the person who made the motion.
I mean, I all understand, but it's just procedurally, like, I
Okay.
think we're all in agreement that but we've got to make sure that once it's closed, you can't do other things.
Can we modify that first amendment, the first motion? No, okay. Okay, next up is the public information hearing on cell towers. Get people here to make a presentation, and then we want this like a public hearing, it's not a public hearing, so that people can comment, we'll limit you to 3 minutes, and if you want to get everybody in, and if you'd like to make additional comments, I can make sure it's on a different subject, you don't want to repeat the same thing.
Very well.
Um,
Is it okay if I come up there? I don't want to stand in people's view.
Oh,
I
no.
give a presentation, okay. So, good evening, for the record, my name is Daniel Patrick. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Towers LLC. It is a joint venture between Verizon Wireless and Vertical Bridge. The LLC is proposing 2 new towers here in the town of Woodstock. We are proposing, next slide. Just some high level background, I'm sure the commission's aware of this, but for the public's sake, these towers fall within the exclusive jurisdiction of the Connecticut Siting Council, it's a state agency. We will be submitting at a later date, we have not submitted anything yet. Part of the process prior to submission requires us to meet with the town. We submitted some information back in December, very extensive packets with information about the proposed towers. The town requested that we present that information to the public this evening. We plan to submit after the 90-day consultation period, which I think expires in end of March. So just an overview of what this evening is about. We're going to provide a brief overview of what these proposed towers are, the locations of them, and a little bit more information about that was submitted. We're going to take comments from the commission, staff, the public. We're going to take those under advisement. Usually what happens is we will take those comments and we'll incorporate them into the application that gets submitted to the state. As part of the state process, there is a public hearing process, so this is not your only opportunity to speak up. If there's other questions that come up after this, we will also be providing notice of the application when they go in to the town, to the abutting property owners, as well as to all the elected officials. So there will be plenty of notice when the applications actually get submitted. And the process with the siting council is very extensive. There's a lot of opportunity for public engagement. So if there are any questions or are any things that the community would like to engage at a later date, there will be further opportunities. So that's a little bit high level on what the process looks like and what we're here for this evening. Just very, very basically, there's 2 towers being proposed. One at 90 Route 171 down there at the bottom. It's the Chase Building Supply property. And another one at 835 Route 169. It's the Christmas Barn property. The properties are a little over 3 miles apart as the crow flies. The proposed towers are intended to address 2 separate coverage gaps within the town that Verizon needs to address. I will start the presentation by going through the first of the 2 towers, which is at 90 Route 171, the Chase Building Supply property. So here's an overview of the property. Here's a location, the yellow dot there, that's the location of the proposed tower. It is just east of the existing paved parking area and outdoor storage area. Here's an aerial map showing the location of the proposed tower. As you can see, they're going to use the existing driveway off of Route 171. There will be a new gravel gravel driveway from that part, from the driveway to proposed tower location. This also shows the location of the existing on-site wetlands and water courses. As you can see, we are developing a proposed facility outside of any wetlands, water courses, or adjacent buffer areas. We're also looking to locate a facility outside of the floodplains, which are the pink and the blue colors. So that's here is another aerial view. Again, we'll be using the existing driveway. There will be approximately 265 linear foot gravel driveway leading from the paved driveway to the facility. Again, we are proposing it located just east of the paved parking area and outdoor storage area that's used by the building supply company. Here is a facility design schematic as well as the elevation of the proposed tower. Proposed tower is a 150-foot monopole tower. Verizon proposes to locate their equipment at the approximate centerline height of 145 feet. There will also be 3 spaces below that for additional carriers if they choose to use the tower at a later date. Here is the facility design. As you can see, Verizon will be proposing their equipment in the bottom left-hand corner of the fenced equipment facility. There is also spaces reserved for future co-locating carriers if they choose to also leave space on. So we provided some colorful coverage maps showing the coverage, the coverage gap areas that Verizon is looking to address with the proposed facility. I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but we have a representative of Verizon here to answer specific questions later if you'd like. Let's skip through these briefly. So that's
Can the representative comment just briefly on the different megahertz coverage that described here, since it's going over?
Yes, I think it makes sense for us to run through the presentation and then we can answer specific, because we also have some coverage plots at the end for the 2 towers together. So I think that's a better opportunity. So you're on the next one. And this is the proposed visibility analysis map that was submitted. The yellow. The orange, the yellow color is the proposed or the likely visibility on a year-round basis. That is when the trees are on and off, or the leaves are on and off the trees. It's about 100 acres of visibility, but it's mostly limited to open spaces related to outdoor agricultural and farmland. And then the seasonal visibility when just the leaves are off the trees is shaded in the orange. So that's a very brief overview of the first of the 2 towers. I will welcome separate attorney to come up and speak on the other application, the other tower.
Good for the price point. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Baldwin. I'm a lawyer with Robinson and Cole, and I represent Verizon Wireless. Doing the second tower site proposed at 835 and 69 Christmas Barn property. A lot of the same exhibits to show you tonight with respect to this proposed tower site. So if you could move on the next slide. The property at 835 through 169, it's a 55-acre parcel used to some extent for agricultural purposes. The indication in yellow is where the proposed tower site would be in a semi-wooded area. If you could go to the next slide. Thank you. The plan is to utilize the existing driveway that extends from Route 169 about 865 feet to the east to the proposed tower site. This is a map that our consultants pulled together showing the extent of wetland boundaries on either side of the driveway. Again, our plan is to use the existing driveway so that we don't have any additional impacts on those wetland areas. We'll be making certain upgrades to that driveway to make sure that it's a stable gravel surface, but there'll be no pavement installed as we get to the tower site. Again, this is essentially a survey that shows the proposed tower location, the access driveway from Route 169 And we've included on here some dimensions, the distance from the adjacent property boundaries. It's again 863.5 feet from Route 169, over almost 1,100 feet from the property line to the south, over 500 feet the property line to the north, and close to 600 feet to the east, keeping it fairly well isolated within the subject park. So again, similar to what Dan mentioned for the other site, Verizon and Vertical Bridge will establish a facility compound that's 50 feet by 50 feet, fenced, secure tower site in the middle of that compound area. Verizon typically installs 2 equipment cabinets on a concrete slab. There'll be a backup diesel generator installed in case power to the facility is interrupted for some reason, and then an ice canopy over the equipment cabinets, which would be provide weather protection in case technicians need to go out there in bad weather. There is no lighting on the tower required by the FAA. There is a light underneath that canopy that is motion censored and controlled by the technician if they have to go out there at night. Again, this is similar to the previous exhibit. Tower elevation on the left side showing 150-foot tower, Verizon's antenna at a center line height of 145 above ground level. This is an antenna configuration showing essentially the antenna mounting system at the top of the tower. I'm going to add a little bit more color, no pun intended, on the coverage maps. One of the things that the siting council has to do is they have to find that there's a need for the facility. And one of the things that Verizon does in order to establish that need is they use coverage maps like this. And what, to your question, what we provide to the siting council are coverage maps in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different operating frequencies. 700 megahertz, which are Verizon space frequencies. 850 megahertz, 1900 megahertz, 2100 megahertz. And now recently, for the last year or so, Wesley, I'm looking to shake your head, the last year or so, in the 3600 megahertz of what we're calling 5G groups. We haven't included the 2100 or 1900 megahertz frequencies here tonight, but we have the 700 megahertz frequency shown here. And real quickly, the color distinction. These are signal strengths, right? Blue is negative 85 dBm RSRP. That's what Verizon strives for from all of its sites. They want that very reliable service. The green is negative 95 dBm RSRP. Still reliable, not as good as blue, but that is their minimum standard. So what this map shows is existing service from sites in Woodstock, Thompson, and some of the adjacent towns at those 2 signal levels from the existing sites. And anything that's not blue or green is something that Verizon considers unreliable. Doesn't mean you won't necessarily be able to make a call or send a text or use your device, but it's very unreliable. You might drop a call, you might lose that signal in those areas that are not either blue or green. So this is, again, existing service, and the site that we're talking about now, 169, is there labeled in blue called Woodstock 2. So if you go to the next slide, you see how the coverage at 700 megahertz from Woodstock 2 fills in nicely, and this site provides a lot of good new service along Route 169 that doesn't exist today, as well as some other areas to the east and to the west, and connects nicely to the Kobe Hill site to the west there. The site that Dan was talking about before also connects nicely to Verizon's site that they call Woodstock Reload, which is in West Plaza Place. Let's go to the next one. This is the 850 megahertz slide. Same existing coverage. You're not going to see a lot of service in Woodstock at 850 megahertz just because that service doesn't exist today. But they're in the process of rolling out. Leslie can talk a little bit more about it. Process of rolling out that 850 megahertz statewide for many of their sites. But there are some sites in the area that provide 850 megahertz service now. The coverage footprint for 850 is gonna look a lot like 700. coverage footprint. And then this is the coverage at 850 megahertz from the Woodstock 2 site that we talked about. If we went back and looked at the other plots, you'd see the same type of coverage at 850 megahertz. As this slide, we'll show you a second, we put both of them on the same map in an effort to see what they both show. And then this is the 5G coverage again. Even fewer sites in the area have that 5G service, that 3,600 megahertz service today. And then if you add that service, you add that service to the Woodstock 2 facility, you can see that larger coverage footprint in those 5G frequencies. So jumping ahead, if you could do that, that'd be great. Oh. No, this is good. This is a similar map to what Dan was just talking about. We have folks from All Points Technology here today to talk to you about visual impacts, because it's usually the biggest impact that we deal with for tower sites. Honestly, we haven't figured out a way to hide these things yet, but so we spend a lot of time talking with the siting council about visual impacts. And this is a computer generated map that is preliminary in nature, only because it looks at year-round views of the tower site above the tree line, and then seasonal views, what you might see through the trees. The benefit of this tower site is that we're kind of tucking in the trees right on the property. So we have some significant visual benefits on this parcel. And again, it's hard to distinguish at this level, but I have some copies of that map that I'm happy to share. But the yellow again is areas where the tower might be visible above the tree line, and then the orange is where it might be visible through the trees if you happen to be looking at it. So trees. And then last but not least, quickly run through the coverage plots for the combined sites. So this is the existing service in and around Woodstock today. This is the folks at Verizon call Woodstock South, the site that Dan was just talking about, and then Woodstock 2. And then again, this is 700 megahertz. And if you go to the next slide, you can see how the coverage from both of those sites work together. Because they're almost 4 miles apart, there's a little bit of overlapping coverage between the two sites, but they are serving two distinct service areas here in Woodstock, both where there's a need for it. And we can just run through quickly the other slide if you would. Here are the two sites with the 50 megahertz, and then adding that service in, and then the same depiction at the 5G frequencies existing with both sites identified in blue. And then the next slide shows the 5G service from both of those sites when they're working together. So that's kind of a quick run through. Happy to go back and answer any questions you might have about any of these slides. And then we've got our experts here in case there are specific questions that they are asking.
So you put in 2 towers now, and you're still left with a lot of white space.
Yep.
What are you gonna do with that?
I think what we do is we wait until they reach the top of the priority list. You know, it's been a little while since we've been here in Woodstock. I've been here a number of times in past years. The most recent application I filed with the siting council was for the 2 small cells that we built on the fairground. But it may have been the Profit Road site a number of years ago. So what happens is, obviously there's a need for additional service. And there are a lot of these areas like this in the state of Connecticut. So Verizon has to prioritize, because they can't build them all at the same time. They gotta wait till the budget exists for these sites. This joint venture that they entered into with Vertical Bridge, I think it's had a lot to do to help some of the sites like this get to the top of that priority list, because Vertical Bridge and Verizon are sharing those budget costs. And that allows sites like this and other sites throughout the state, we're working on a number of sites with Vertical Bridge throughout the state that have been able to percolate to the top of that budgetary list. So I guess the best I can say to you is, once those additional locations are prioritized by the RF engineers, we'll be back. Julie?
I have a question. We have two airports in town. One of them is not that far away from Peace Lumber, so you don't have to have any lights.
No, not for that one, we've already consulted with the FAA and then we have no idea, not all.
Joseph?
Maybe can address, the existing cell towers that you went through. Is it technically possible to upgrade the 700 megahertz to make 50 megahertz, 5G, so that they get improved coverage on the existing cell tower?
Well, that's the expert.
Yes,
Sure. I'm Wesley Stevens. I do the ARC design
Thank you.
for Verizon Wireless. I'll go ahead, just move in front and make sure everybody can see me. But to address your question about the existing 700 megahertz, what can we do at our existing towers? And there are some things we can do. You know, there's new equipment coming out all the time. And one of the reasons you don't necessarily see, for example, 150 megahertz, some of our existing towers, we haven't gone back to those sites in some number of years with the newer equipment to add those frequencies. And in those cases, sometimes we do see some benefits. We either have, you know, new antennas that have a little bit more gain, or, you know, the radios have a little bit more power. But there's a lot of limitations with that. There's only so much benefit you can get out of making small incremental upgrades like that, that realistically aren't going to be able to fill whole bit size, even with small changes. So at the end of the day, we would have to add some new locations to be able to address these issues.
So maybe going back to the previous question, there are often build out plans for how much land can be developed. Is there a build out plan for the state of Connecticut or for Woodstock as to how many towers would be needed to get 95 or 100% coverage or whatever is the appropriate standard? How
So
many
we-
more towers?
Yeah, so we do have a little bit further out plan, but we don't necessarily have a plan for like the entire state. If we would cover every road, you know, every, you know, regardless of population or anything like that. So again, it kind of comes down to, we have basically different tiers of, we think, okay, these are really the most important spots that we don't cover today that we think could really benefit from getting filled. And again, have those at the top, and then kind of the second tier of plan sites, et cetera. And plan a little bit further along, but realistically, a lot changes, you know, especially with the technology year to year. So, you know, beyond, you know, 3 years out, something like that. And again, maybe 1 or 2 more tiers of plans, you know, we don't have a comprehensive plan for covering everything.
You're not gonna get service in
Well, okay with that. I just wanted to ask the attorneys, maybe a little bit more, but questions that, or maybe we'll get to that later, the comments that have come from the Conservation Commission and other suggestions. Will they be brought to the siting council or to your attention in reviewing the plans and locations or design of the towers, a camouflage tower? It's an example. Recommendation, conservation. So Conservation Commission has had a number of recommendations for both sites. And granted, they're only recommendations, but how seriously do you get implemented in design or redesign before you go to the siting council?
They usually get taken into very strong consideration. We were able to review those comments earlier. I haven't been able to consult with the actual applicant or the client about what we can incorporate. But typically what also happens is after we submit to the siting council, the siting council will reach out to the town and ask for any comments that they have, which is to share those things for that previously addressed. They also ask us what comments have come up during the consultation process, at which time we usually raise them and explain why we can't incorporate certain things.
They do give some feedback on.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Conservation Commission will be able to see them, or the town fathers will be able to see them, pass them along.
We have an obligation to take any comments we get from this municipal consultation process to the siting council. Present them either in our application or usually the attachment to the application. This is what we heard from the town. This is what we did with the town. These are the comments that we received. And on the issue of stealth towers, street towers, Brian Gaudette's here, can talk a little bit more about it, 'cause we deal with it on a regular basis. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time in front of the siting council, and sometimes they're appropriate, sometimes they're not. The siting council ultimately has to decide whether it's appropriate under the circumstances, in the context of both of these settings. And sometimes, frankly, in my view, makes them worse than if you just build a traditional tower. So it's something that would be considered, something that we present to the siting council, and often in rural settings like this, that issue.
And just one final question on the tower for your Chase lumber. Talking about a long driveway, existing driveway, but you have to get power from this 165, 171, so be a long train track or somewhere.
Yes,
That
I'll go
would
over
be
the
the road, and that was that part of the package that you submitted?
Yeah, there's information in the package about the disturbance and
Yeah.
residents would be required for.
Thank you.
Stealth tower is actually a tower that's made on existing tree, or it's the cell tower where they put those funky looking fake trees up.
That one.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Those are horrible.
some aren't, some aren't. I think we've seen some good ones over there. They've gotten better. Everyone thinks about the one on the Hutch Parkway down in Westchester County. I drove by it the other day. It's like, oh, yeah, that looks like a toilet brush, but
They all do.
tree tower beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Some look better than others. I'm not a big fan, but some look.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. I read the Conservation Commission's report in the bottom of the first page. It's talking about the 169 site. It's saying that it will permanently take this wooded land from some farmland agriculture and the agricultural land out of production. But if you're not disturbing the cropland, would that not be allowed to be farmed? I don't know why it would be required to be stopped. Or are they just referring to the part that's in the woods that would no longer be wooded? But it sounds like they're talking about the farmland too.
And nothing changes as far as the use of the other portion of the property except for that 50 by 50 foot compound and the access road again. We don't have the ability through our lease agreement to tell the
That's
property
what I
owner.
thought.
They may be talking perhaps, Matt, I don't know, the area where we are might be considered prime farmland. The siting council has to review that as part of its process. But again, we're talking about 2,500 square feet of area that, even if it was in productive farm use, which it's not currently, we would be removing, we would argue that we can have a significant impact on prime
I
farming.
think what they meant was that forestry is considered agriculture, so maybe taking that amount of space out of forestry. But you're not affecting the rest of the property, which some of it has farmland, like actual.
As you know, the state has designated Route 169 a scenic highway. Are you aware of what their regulations are as far as, putting a tower that's visible from a scenic highway?
Brian, you wanna talk about that?
All right, Brian got out with All Points Technology. We handle the visuals here. Stand up in front so everybody can see me. I'm not aware of any specific regulations restricting development around the scenic roads, whether it be state or local designation, as it relates to towers. The point earlier about what can we do to kind of screen these, that's one thing that we look at. We put these maps up on a preliminary basis that let us see, okay, generally speaking, we think it might be visible. It's a very refined process, usually over predictive of what that visibility is going to be. And then our team goes out in the field, we put a balloon up, or in case of the Woodstock South property, we did a crane there as well. So that gives us a fixed point to look at in the sky. We drive around the entire, actually, if you can pull up the, you should have map.
Which, you know, what page that is?
Uh,
Up or down?
I would say that. Right, this, so I'll use this one just to speak to. So it's tough to see at this scale, but this circle here is a 2 mile radius. What we're required to do with the siting council is review what the visibility impact is gonna be throughout this entire 2 mile radius. So we go out, we don't go and just focus on the areas where it shows it might be visible. We drive every street, every publicly accessible area. We will access and see if we can see the balloon or not. And then we'll categorize that, as I mentioned before, as seasonal views, where you can see it through the trees. We do this stuff, I would say 99% of the time in the winter months, when the leaves are off. It gives us the most visibility, kind of the worst case scenario, so to speak. And then we'll see where we see it above the tree as well. And that information, once we get out in the field, allows us to go back and evaluate these sites. There's times that, to Ken's point, a monopole is better. You don't have, wide branching up top, or a silo now that's taking up a lot more, what I call airspace, right? They can be a little bit more refined. Sometimes you have the ability to pull in your rays a little bit tighter if we need to. There are other options. Monopoles can be good, but it's got to fit in the context of the setting. So putting a monopole up just to disguise it as a tree at 150 feet, we have to see, where these views are going to be prominent? Are there other conifers in the area that would make it blend in? Are there intervening vegetation that would help blend it in? Because otherwise you've just got, for the Chase building, let's say, you have a 150-foot tall pine tree in the middle of an open one. So there's no real context there to screen a site like that. Whereas the Woodstock 2 site at the Christmas Farm does have the benefit that surrounding tree coverage in that area.
To answer your question, a little bit more directly though, impact on scenic road is kind of the second part of the analysis that Brian's team does. And it's something that the siting council will ask about.
Yeah, and you can see we call out these locally designated roads here. It's something, to Ken's point, the council wants to see. They want to see, they've got to balance what they need versus the impact, the environmental impact. To Ken's point, a lot of time that environmental impact is visible.
So I assume that they know it's a scenic road.
Yes, yep, and that, and I know it's tough to see on here. This dotted line coming down through the center, 169. And that is
Right.
the scenic road. That's over here. You can see on the legend, it's called out. Now it'll be called out in the application to the council.
I have another question. Your fencing law 50 foot by 50 foot, right? Basically chain link fence around it. How close can somebody build to that perimeter?
Well, I
Is
think,
there any restriction as far as radio waves or anything like that?
no,
Distance from that 50 by 50 foot thing,
or, I mean, we have exclusive lease rights to that area.
right?
So, I guess arguably, technically, they could build right up to the fence line if they had the rights to do that, if they were outside of our lease parcel. There are no issues with radio frequency emissions. We've included in the technical report package that we submitted to the town, both sites, a worst case scenario calculation based on what the FCC requires for our information. Intended at 145 feet or 150 feet above the ground. Assuming, worst case conditions, all the antennas are pointed at a point directly at the base of the tower. Facility is transmitting on all frequencies at full power. Both of these facilities operate at about 5%, 20 times below what the FCC allows from a radio frequency perspective. So these are very low power facilities in the grand scheme of things. So are complying with those RF emissions requirements with the FCC is never a problem with these facilities. So if someone were to build, I don't know why they would, but if someone were to build and want to build right up to the fence line or come as close to the fence line as they could outside of our lease rights, I suppose they could do that. But at least, I mean, both wood- Woodstock South Park, sorry, has already been developed.
Yeah.
And we're not aware of the property owner's desire to build anything further on the Woodstock Two side, but I don't think there are any specific restrictions like you might.
Okay, thank you.
So the G's lumber property, I believe, has a special permit, but if they wanted to do anything else there, you have to come back and modify those special permit.
Yeah, or non-wireless related.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple quick points. We've got more than a dozen locally designated scenic roads.
Yep.
We care about this aesthetic. And we're proud of 169. Related to the Chase site, the wetlands area adjacent to the east is on DEP's National Diversity Database as a critical habitat. And just another note about Woodstock's FEMA flood maps have not yet been updated. They were updated in Thompson, and that there was a change in the flood area that is likely to occur in the flood areas when Woodstock's mapping is complete.
Yeah, and revised information is gonna be taken into consideration throughout the siting council process, so if those maps are revised and reissued during or prior to our application to the siting council. that information will be provided.
Why don't we let Matt earn some of this keep time? This is back up. He's with All Points environmental team. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the environmental characteristics of each.
Yeah, I can certainly address two of the points you made on the lumber property associated with. First, your point on the Little River proper, or the Little River resource that's to the east. It is obviously a wetland, perennial water course. There is an association with an NDDB polygon farther to the east. However, their review policy limits their review to the polygons themselves. We are outside of that NDDB polygon with our proposed facility. I think we're over almost a half mile away from that location at the current proposed location. So we don't have any requirements to file determination with the Natural Diversity Database. To your second point on floodplains, the FEMA maps associated with Little River do have a base flood elevation established with it. Base flood elevations, for the edification of the crowd, are designs that the FEMA puts out that says that at X elevation, that is where we expect to see flooding in your 100-year storm. The actual mapping, and maybe if we can bring up that map, it might be helpful, and that's farther, much higher up. Page 5, the very colorful one. There you go, that one there.
7.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. So the base flood elevation that's established doesn't necessarily correspond to the polygons, the pink and blue polygons you're seeing here. That base flood elevation is a study that FEMA will put out. It's again saying that's elevation because these are based on, the polygons are based off LiDAR data, the elevation that's flown over. So it's an approximation. Again, at our tower site, our base flood elevation study is at 230 or 293 ASL or AMSL. Our compound, by form of reference, is at 297, and our access road generally sits somewhere between 294 and 297. So we do have a couple feet of separation, even to your point, when they do get, I think we're expecting an update for this portion of Woodstock sometime in March. Even if we do raise, we certainly have some buffer to our compound site where we have some fill activities potentially. By and large, the access road will be what's boxed out. It'll be put on grade, so you don't have any actual appreciable increase to the flood capacity of the area. Certainly, as this comes out, we'll do a formal flood study to ensure that one, with the new data, that we're meeting that new base flood elevation study level, and two, that we don't have any impacts to the storage ability of the floodplain. If we do, then we are forced to address it, be it redesigning the facility slightly to keep it out of those areas, or providing compensatory flood storage, which we do have capacity for on the site. So,
Thank you.
thank you. I guess I'll join the panel. up there.
You say that there's gonna be a 50-foot fence around the tower location, but it's gonna be in the woods. What if there's a 100-foot tree within it's 60 feet? If it falls over, it's gonna hit the tower. So will there be forest management around this area to stabilize fall zone?
And I think that the short answer is yes. We don't just look at the 50 by 50. Obviously,
Right.
there needs to be an additional cushion there for construction purposes. So it generally results in a clearing a little bit larger than a fence compound. We've also been in situations, and you guys can speak to this, where once you get in there, the siting council sees some trees that they want us to save. And all of a sudden they're telling us, well, instead of 50 by 50, you get 40 by 60, maybe 30 by 75. So there are adjustments that can be made to protect trees. You know, we can have a tree outside of our compound that we're going to destroy the root structure for, and you may end up losing that tree anyway. So there are adjustments that are typically made through the siting council's review process as it relates to trees around the compound that will take that into consideration.
Joseph, just a couple of quick questions. The coverage maps that you were showing, those are Verizon coverage maps.
Yeah,
Are there other carriers with other cell phone towers that have additional coverage, or is Verizon the only one with cell phone towers?
Verizon's currently the only carrier proposing to locate on the tower right now. During the process or after if it gets approved by the Southern Council, other carriers might trust the public on that. But
I was
there's a
trying to
state process for that.
get, are there other cell phone towers that exist for like T-Mobile?
Yes, so
Frontier,
they
that are
typically
not
look
part
at-
of the coverage
Part
that
of-
you're showing.
No, all the Verizon's equivalent within a 4-mile radius is reflected.
I think you're getting to the point that is Verizon not on a tower that exists today that would be suitable for
Fair
their
enough.
coverage.
Yes, right.
So
No.
I would say no. Wes and their team spend an exorbitant amount of time looking at that stuff first. That's the easiest process.
Okay.
So I
there are
know
other
that-
towers in the town.
They don't want to have to spend their money.
We list them in the application material for identifying which towers exist,
Okay.
where Verizon currently is, and why other towers are not suitable to serve the coverage.
We'll show all existing facilities as defined by the siting council. Will be shown in a 4-mile radius to where these sites are, and that goes into the application. That's one of the things that council has about. That's where that justification.
It's much cheaper to co-locate on existing
Yeah.
things that go with it, so that's why, that's usually the first thing.
And then just a quick one, and this might be for, 20 years, 30 years, when the towers are no longer equal. Are there provisions for dismantling towers or any? You're nodding your head somehow.
Yes,
So you understand what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the council,
Two things. One, the council always includes a conditional approval that says if you're not using the city. There's also provisions typically in leases for property owners, if you're not gonna use the facilities, they want their land back. So you have to decommission it.
Thank you.
and then actually one of the other conditions that may come up too, we always evaluate through Space Historic Preservation Office for impacts of historical resources. So we've got the district here in the center. That's not inside what the HIPAA looks at from the FCC standard as the area. But there could be visibility there, and so they might essentially extend that radius. When they do that, they tend to put a condition of approval on their no adverse effect determination letters that state if the facility is not in use for 90 days. It's got to be removed. So there's multiple agencies that might.
Are there any alternative sites that you looked at, especially for the north location, that would still work? To provide similar coverage? That's maybe not along 169?
So, Yeah, we always look at, again, existing facilities, but also other potential candidates for new facilities. I don't remember the list off the top of my head.
And we included in the technical report, what we call a site search summary. There are actually 25 other sites, total 25 sites, so the proposed site plus 24 others, that were considered. And typically what happens is the real estate folks go out, they knock on doors, they send letters, they call people and ask if there's an interest. We're not a public service company. We don't have the right of eminent domain and will people to lease the property. We have to rely on them to be willing to lease this property. So a lot of those properties drop out because of property owners not interested. A lot of properties will drop out because of environmental effects or what we determine to be more significant visual effects, those types of things. So we go through kind of a vetting process of each of them. And ultimately ended up in this case with a single property owner where we can limit the environmental effects to the visual effects we think are appropriate under the circumstances, and we've got a willing.
Okay.
So but they are listed in the technical report that we submitted.
Thank
you. Jim?
Yeah, Chip Pocket for selecting the town of Woodstock. I'm sorry, I have a serious hearing disability, so being redundant, I apologize. But I believe part of the citing and application process is the municipality has the right to suggest a site on municipal owned land. And I have done that and I have not heard back, and I just want to make sure that we're still on the list. My suggestion was to look at the transfer station site on Penn District Road, up behind the existing transfer station by the solar array. And I just, maybe I didn't hear something, but I just want to make sure that the town site is still being considered.
Right, we did take that into consideration and took a look at it from an RF perspective.
Yeah, I believe we did look at it. It was a little too far away to be able to fill the hole that we were looking at. I'll have to go back. Maybe it just didn't get sent over. That's the case. I apologize.
If I remember correctly, that was right. It's too far to the east to fill the need we were looking at here. It may provide us with an opportunity for another tower site down the road where that might be a viable option, but we'll be sure to address that in the app.
Okay, because I was told that I was supposed to be getting an answer prior to this meeting, but
Any more questions from the commissioner? Yes, Ken.
So, the staff had received a letter forwarding supplemental proof from the site at. Sorry. We received a letter forwarding supplemental proof from the site at 90 Route 171, which included some, included copies of the legal notices that were sent out as well as certified mail receipts. But we didn't receive a similar document from the other application. So I'm just curious if that was a requirement of the process, or if that's not a requirement was done by that application for.
I was responsible for the second one. We do not typically send them one out using certified mail. It's not required by the process. I can provide you with a certificate of service if you like, but it's not required.
Did you do the legal notices?
Any more commissioner or staff questions? Open it up to the public. If you want to speak, please stand up and state your name for the record and go ahead.
Chris Chasonic. The utilities that will serve the tower on the Route 169 site, is that all going to be installed underground?
Yes.
Yes. Jacob Korzo. I was just wondering for the Route 71 tower, what would be the effect on the current wetland through potential trench digging for power line access?
Sure. Matthew Justison, Ball Points. Generally, we're located pretty distant to the wetlands. at this particular location, certainly with the trenching that you're referring to, we're located over like 100, about 170, almost 180 feet away from the location at the closest point, which is actually at the compound location to the sensitive resource, the Little River, and the buffer wetlands there. It's not currently evaluated, but during the process of the siting council process, design and management phases, go through a comprehensive stormwater and erosion control analysis and management plan. This site, being that the first stub of the access road is going to be occurring within the existing paved access road, and then transitioning to a gravel road and a gravel compound. Those impacts to stormwater are very minimal. We're talking about using an existing impervious surface and then installing pervious gravel surfaces. So most of your water stormwater that's generated is going to infiltrate. We're not planning on changing the drainage patterns anywhere out here, so that any water that historically or prior to the proposed facility install drained to either of these wetlands will drain in the same fashion after their installation. Again, the actual location of the facility is in an existing generally cleared area, kind of edge scrub area, directly adjacent to the paved parking lot, and the access road is within an existing paved surface, transitioning to the gravel surface within edge field areas. So you're not impacting certainly any buffer habitat to the wetlands either that supports, any critical functions to either of the wetlands that are located on the site. So all in all, this is from certainly an environmental, wetland perspective, wildlife perspective. We look for sites like this that are either within or directly adjacent to existing development infrastructure because they heavily, limit the amount of impacts to the surrounding resources.
Any other questions?
Yes, still good for Jonathan.
Yeah, no, jump in.
Just a quick question on who oversees the actual work, to ensure that it's following what's been submitted to the siting council, the local towns, the CEO, the one who will watch it, is there a CO that's signed off? To say that it's
I'll start on this because we do have proximity to sensitive resources. Typically in both of these tower sites, because of the proximity to resources, we'll propose for the resource protection plan, which will require third-party monitoring. Will likely be either myself or someone else from my offices that are experienced in assessing environmental impact, ensuring that erosion controls are maintained, slope prevention kits are maintained. The contractors are educated, aware of where the sensitive resources are, protecting their lines, essentially making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, the environmental protection standpoint. As part of that, we're also ensuring erosion controls are maintained and so on. I guess I kind of feed into that. There's also your construction managers that are responsible for tracking that the site is installed per the approval.
And there will be local permitting, local building permit, trade permits, things like that. So at a local level, there will be the enforcement from the town itself. Or
building
through the
official,
town, whoever, yeah. It's, well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's usually just administrative because the Ken can speak to it.
Right, it doesn't. come
But
with
yeah.
commission.
Yes. Yeah.
thank you.
Joe, question, George Weatherill, two questions, I guess. The first one is, when you enter into an agreement with the landowner, typically, how long is that agreement?
Typically 25 years.
Okay.
5 years with 4 or 5 year extensions.
My other question, am I out of line in asking, what is the annual income, something like that, to the landowner?
Respectfully, you're out of line.
Okay.
No, we
that's
just,
fine.
no, I don't mean to be, we just typically don't share that information.
Okay.
The property owner wants to share it, they can, but the right is up. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, thank you guys.
Oh,
sorry.
Documents that we talked about are online on the town website, planning and zoning. There's a sidebar. It says 2/20/25 planning and zoning meeting. You click on that, You scroll down at the bottom of the page, there's an attachment section, documents that they presented tonight. And other supporting documents and comments that have been submitted so far are all there, visible to anyone who wants to have a look at it. And, we also have some comments that came through that we'd like to share with you. They're on the table in the written form, some of those.
These are ones that you sent out today, in email.
Yeah, I sent three separate.
Today, yeah.
And I'll look at my emails with the most names on it. And I'll forward them again. I'm sure everybody's got them.
Yeah, and just overall, quick, this is really the start of this process, so that, you know, yes, the 90-day municipal consultation period ends beginning of April, I think, at the end of March. But the siting council process goes on for another 6 months after that, so if you think of something else that you want to get into our hands, you can send it along, there's no restriction. It's part of that site. Where is the public hearing for the siting council held? It's gonna be on Zoom. They don't do in-person public hearing and not since COVID. Everything's done remotely. So we will get a notice when town will get a notice when that comes. Yeah, town will be notified when applications are submitted to the siting council. Budding property owners are notified of the date that the application will be filed. After that, siting council publishes legal notice in the newspaper, plus everything we file with the siting council, the application, all notices, all interrogatory responses are all posted on the siting council website. It's a very useful tool. So once the applications are filed, each application will be given a docket number, and you can reference anything and everything in the application through that docket number on the siting council. Anything else? Nothing, I guess we're done. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think we've everything else before the public hearing. Right. Comments? None. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion second? Yeah, motion second?